Good morning, viewer. Good morning. Yes, it's a November morning, and I'm not working today, so I'm doing this. Recently, there was a talk done by Jeffrey Jackson in relation to the resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. Now, coincidentally, 1 year ago, big coincidence, I was going to do a talk about the very same thing. Something triggered a disquieting moment that I'd had a long time ago when I was in Ellesmere Port in the late 70s, and all of a sudden it came back, and I thought I need to do a talk about this, and subsequently Jackson's beaten me to it, but I'm glad he has, because he's providing some wonderful illustrations which has made me feel even more uneasy than I did at the time, which I'll go on to explain. When I was in Ellesmere Port, all those years ago, I think in the late 70s, just after the congregation got too big and we'd split into two congregations, one of the elders I think that went to the other hall was a guy, and I think his name was Roy or Ray Creswell. I'm not certain on this, but he was an elder, and he went everywhere on his little moped, and all of a sudden the news came through he'd been killed outright in a collision on a bus. And we were all shocked. I think it was the first person I'd known that ever died personally. And of course we all comforted ourselves with the belief that is still the belief that, well, that's good for him. He's died prior to Armageddon. He won't have to go through the Great Tribulation. He won't have to go through Armageddon being tested and testing his faith. And basically he's just got a ticket straight to the paradise. So, let's have a party. And that's the way we comfort ourselves with that. Because obviously in the resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous, he was definitely going to come back as a righteous one because he was an elder. And I was out auxiliary pioneering with a regular pioneer in our hall not so long after that, maybe around about the same time, I can't remember. And I was out with a guy called Jan Paprocki, who some people might know. And we used to go. I used to support him with his pioneer work a lot. He was supposed to be supporting me, and one time we were that fed up working this place called Stanny that we went into a local pub and just played pool and drank for 2 hours. That's how bad it was. I don't think we counted our time. And I was talking to him about the resurrection of the righteous and the righteous. I think I might have been actually referring to this elder who died, and he said, well, in the resurrection, because the unrighteous are going to be counted, possibly Hitler will come back. And I thought, well, talk about coming off my confirmation bias. That all of a sudden I was railroaded with that statement, because that was not the narrative that in my mind I was believing, that potentially Hitler would come back. And I said, Hitler? He says, yes, it depends on his heart condition at the time of his death. This was his thinking. I don't know whether it was a general witnessing thinking. So I was thinking, well, prior to his death, I think his heart condition was of utter failure, that all of a sudden the Russians were on the east, the Allies and the British and the Canadians were coming in from the west, and that Berlin was a disaster area, and he decided to shoot himself in the head. So, I don't see how he would have then felt, I think he would have felt sorry for that he never got to kill either more Jews in the gas chambers. But he said Hitler, and it really, my sort of cognitive dissonance just sort of kicked in, and I tried to then, it didn't settle with me, it didn't make me feel happy about it, but somehow I just thought to myself and excused the fact that Hitler may come back by thinking, well, God's God, he knows best, blah, 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 blah. And I never ever thought about the resurrection of the righteous and unrighteous again until last year. This is a conversation which happened, a long time ago, many decades ago. So anyway, this talk which Jackson gave refers to, probably the only scripture which refers to it, and it's in Acts 24:15, and I think it's a bit disingenuous when we keep on using this phraseology of unrighteousness, because it doesn't really examine or help us understand what an unrighteous person is really capable of, or what they really are. But anyway, I'll read the scripture. This is the New World Translation version of it. It says, and I have hope towards God, which hope these men also look forward to, that there is going to be a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. And Paul at that time when he said those words was actually addressing Jews. He was having to address the high priest, the elder, and the Jews. So basically, he was just trying to get on a level playing field with them to say, look, we all believe this. We all believe this. And even if we think about when Lazarus was resurrected, they said, yes, we know he will rise again. So, the thinking at that time was there was going to be a resurrection of the righteous on the unrighteous. So this isn't just a witnessy belief. It's in the Bible. It was believed by the Jews at the time, and Paul was trying to get on to sort of common ground with them, saying, look, we all believe this, So he said that, but that when you use the word phrase righteous or unrighteous, in everyday speech, we don't use that phrase. Who uses that phrase ever in either relation to somebody alive now or somebody who's lived in the past? You don't say, oh, that person was very righteous or that person was unrighteous, because it in modern day speech, it holds no weight. It gives no inkling of what you're referring to. The only time that I've used the word righteous when I'm referring to the two guys who sang "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" and the theme from Ghost, and they were the righteous brothers, and funny enough, they weren't even brothers. That's the only time I'll ever use the word righteous ever in my life. I did used to use the phrase self-righteous when I used to refer to a number of elders that I knew through all my time as a witness, but that's it. I'll never ever refer to anybody as being, oh, that guy's really unrighteous. So, to get the full weight of the resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous, so we can get an idea of what we're talking about here, which Jackson then goes to show through illustrations. The unrighteous means that if you look it up, it means somebody who is sinful and somebody who is wicked. And even Jackson in his talk refers to some of the ones who will be resurrected under the category of unrighteous. Some of them may have practiced horrible and vile things. So there you go. Now what Jackson goes on to mention in his talk, which I'm glad he did, he confirms that through a bunch of illustrations of people being resurrected. Now, I don't have the the technical know-how a lot of people have, so I can next thing be on one part of this and little pictures are coming up. So I'm just going to blag my way through this and just actually show you the illustration on my laptop. So basically, if we look there, we can see here is obviously somebody who's probably a Quaker or somebody who's fleeing persecution in Europe and may have been on the Mayflower and may have gone to America. This guy here is probably from the Iberian Peninsula. He's probably Spanish or Portuguese. He's probably a Catholic. He's probably a conquistador, and he is a soldier of Christ. This person here is obviously Oriental, may have lived prior to Jesus Christ and may have been involved in emperor worship or some sort of other worship, but clearly never knew about Christ. This person here, you can't really tell what he is, but I think he's probably somebody from the South Americas. He might have been even fighting this guy here. This guy here is probably an Inca Aztec, and he obviously was involved in a sacrificial of bodies of men who were slaves or babies or women or children, ripping out hearts and whatever. This guy here is obviously from Africa, may have lived around about the time of Christ, maybe 500 years later, obviously involved in ancestor worship. But basically, these guys here are coming back under the two categories of the righteous and the unrighteous. And we see this in the next illustration, which they do. If you look at this illustration, we see there's the conquistador. Mine is a suit of armour. He's going, wow, amazing, heavens, amazing, what's going on here? This guy here obviously is the guy who we think is from the South Americas. And then we have coming over the bridge, we have the person who's obviously a Quaker, what have you. The person over here is the the guy from Africa, and we have the Oriental woman as well. So basically everybody's coming back in amazement, because you can imagine that everybody coming back in the resurrection would have thought that they were expected to ascend, to go to some sort of spirit home. So the next thing is that they're here, they're on the earth, and they don't have wings or whatever, and all of a sudden they are gone back to, a lot of these people may have died as old people, they've come back in youthful bodies. But now we'll come back to this a little later. Notice how they've all come back in the clothes that they wore in their life. They've all come back wearing the same clothes that they wore in their life, what they were comfortable wearing. Because this does come back later on. So, okay, now this next illustration that Jackson shows, this is interesting. This is interesting. I never thought about this. It shows here the Iberian soldier, and if you look at the side there of his horse, there's the cross on it. So basically he's about to put to the sword a woman and child, because of obviously not being Christian, because of believing in an emperor or what have you. And this guy here has got bows, he's got arrows there, so maybe he was fighting this guy, I don't know, but obviously he was, he was involved in sacrificing it. So I believe these two people here will come back under the category of the unrighteous. Obviously people who were involved in horrible, vile and wicked things, killing women and children, and maybe just cutting the beating hearts of maybe a woman and child as a sacrifice. Now, ironically, let's think about this. The conquistador, he is killing a woman and child and putting them to the sword in the name of God. He's got the cross on the side of his horse. Where would he have got that idea from? Well, I'll tell you where he might have got the idea from the Bible, because the Bible shows examples where God commanded the Israelites to go into certain cities and put everybody to the sword. Don't leave, even beasts weren't spared. Women and children and babies were all put to the swords on the command of God. This is what God wanted to do. He wanted to be a bloodletting, and these were put to the sword. So if anybody is looking to the example, in the 16th century, of what we should do when we come across false worshippers, disgusted at the practices they may have seen, that's what they did. They just went in, no mercy. They went in and slaughtered thousands of people by the sword, by cannon or gunpowder or whatever they had on horses, and the people in the South Americans hadn't even seen a horse. And yet they felt justified in doing this. Again, the cognitive dissonance would have kicked in. They're doing something that naturally you don't really want to put to the sword, a woman and child, but you justify your actions. You justify them thinking, well, this is God's will. God wills it, so we'll do it. So basically, I think these two guys, because they're the only two guys that we sort of follow their story in extra illustrations, come under the banner or the category of the unrighteous resurrection. If we go on to the next picture, here's this guy here. So this guy here now, he's sort of changed into sort of smart casual. He's getting a Bible study. So this is the guy who previously had the arrows in his hand, may have been part of child sacrifice. He is getting a Bible study. Lovely. And here he is. There's even more people with a Bible study with him. So there's not one person who's having a Bible study with him. It's, it's maybe more. Or it could be that maybe the other two people having the Bible study, or maybe that's maybe the guy's come back as a righteous person from Africa, and maybe this is a person who's grown a hair since. Maybe that now is the person who was on the Mayflower. Maybe they've all gone a bit modern on us. Maybe that they've ditched the clothes that they originally came back in the resurrection with. But maybe that's them. Maybe that's the one elder now discussing with the three of them. I don't know what's happened to the Oriental woman. I don't know. Maybe not these. Maybe maybe that's his wife and a chum. I don't know. I don't care. So what happens to the soldier of Christ? Well, here he is, laughably, he's getting a Bible study as well. The soldier of Christ is getting a Bible study as well. So this is the guy here who previously was doing what the Israelites did, was putting to the sword non-worshippers, false worshippers, people who are involved with pagan worship. That's in there. Bizarrely, he's come back with the beard. And to make him so he doesn't feel out of place, he's getting a Bible study with somebody who also has a beard. This man here has a beard, and look at what he's wearing. Clearly this guy here is wearing the clothes of the time he lived in. And initially when I looked at it, I thought, oh, maybe it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Maybe he's getting, you know, specific hands-on with one of the apostles or disciples. But of course, that can't be the case because they're in heaven. So the guy he's getting the Bible study with is maybe one of the prophets, Samuel, maybe King David, I don't know, but it's one of these probably cool biblical guys who's come back in the resurrection wearing his cool biblical clothes, and he's teaching, and he gets to keep a beard. The soldier of Christ gets to keep the beard, but unfortunately anybody else, if you survived Armageddon, if you died prior to Armageddon without a beard, you don't come back with a beard. And if you survive Armageddon, you're not allowed to grow a beard either. So if you died with a beard, you're allowed to keep a beard. Oh my God. So basically, this guy here is now getting taught, you know, the errors of his ways, the fact that what he did in his prior life of being a soldier of Christ, putting to death by the sword false worshippers, was actually the wrong thing to do, even though he's following the example of the Israelites. Hey ho, a little bit confusing. And as we see here, there we go, looking on is obviously Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, and maybe Jeffrey Jackson. So they're looking down at this Bible study with this, you know, just to see how it's going on, really, just to see, you know, cracking on, listening on the Bible study of this guy here, this soldier of Christ. But bizarrely, the next illustration is quite telling. He has actually rejected the teaching from maybe King David. Maybe King David wasn't a good enough speaker. He's rejecting the teaching and he's walking away. He's walking away and said, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. And I'm going to come back to why this is the case. It's not for me. I'm going to reject the teaching completely. So he's off. He's gone. So the thing about it is, I've never thought about the fact that when the resurrection is completed, of the resurrection of the righteous and the righteous, that we would get people like these guys coming back. I just thought the unrighteous were people who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, didn't practice being a witness, and weren't particularly good people. They were all right. They weren't bad people, but they weren't wicked people. They weren't killers. But clearly, this guy's a killer, and the guy who's involved in the sacrifice of children, he was a killer too. So they come back under the category of the unrighteous people. I'd never really thought about this, and this is why this all of a sudden, when I saw this, it was like, oh my God, it's Hitler coming back all over again for me. And then I started to think about the unfairness of this whole resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous, and I'll explain why. You will have the scenario of a sister whose unbelieving, supportive husband will be put to death at Armageddon. You will have the scenario that her two children, her son and her daughter, the daughter paid the ultimate sacrifice for falling in love with either somebody of the same sex or falling in love with somebody else's husband, got disfellowshipped, never came back and was put to death at Armageddon. Again, that's the only thing they did wrong. They weren't a bad person, they were a good person. And the son who left the organisation when he was 16 and went on to become a famous artist or a scientist or what have you. Again, wasn't a bad person, was all in all a good person. And yet at Armageddon, because of the crime of not being a baptized Jehovah's Witness, as was confirmed a couple of years ago in a watchtower, basically saying that if you're at Armageddon, if you're not a baptized Jehovah's Witness, you're going to be put to death. So their crime would have been that they were either out of the organisation or never been a baptised Jehovah's Witness, and they would die at Armageddon. Now, ironically, going back to Jan Paprocki, his father, despite his mum and his sister and his brother and his half-brothers being witnesses, his father never got baptised. I think he used to come to the odd witnessy wedding. He may have come to the odd memorial. But again, he died, bizarrely, and I think in another moped accident. And again, when he died, we were comforted with the thought, and he was comforted with the thought, was, well, at least my dad has got a free pass through to Armageddon. He won't have to go through the Great Tribulation. He won't have to die needlessly at Armageddon because he wasn't baptized. But because of the resurrection of the righteous, he'll probably come under the righteous banner. Probably not the unrighteous, but heaven knows, you know, what he did on a part-time basis. But anyway, he comes back. He will come back in the resurrection. So of course, that's what comforted them at the time. But the scenario of a sister who was going to survive Armageddon and will go through as a widow and might have seen in front of her eyes her husband burning alive and her 2 children burning alive just for the crimes of not being baptized Jehovah's Witnesses or being disfellowshipped and being nice people, they'd be put to death by, well, Jeffrey Jackson, for instance. Jeffrey Jackson would have put them to death. And this is a scenario that she survives Armageddon and now she's into the paradise on her own. Now, let's think about this for a second. When you see pictures of the paradise, everybody seems really, really happy. They're all at a log cabin, wearing smart casual clothes, eating fruit and veg, and stroking badgers, and everybody seems happy because this is what they're going to be doing for the 1,000 years. Bizarrely, I don't see that's going to be the case because, for instance, they're going to have to be involved, and the organisation has alluded to this many times, they're going to have to be involved in the burial of 7 billion people all over the world who died at Armageddon. That's a lot of people. There's only about, how many Jehovah's Witnesses are there? There's 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses, so they've got to bury 7 billion. So there's a hell of a lot of people that they've individually got to bury. And they may be burying friends, neighbours, relatives, husbands, sons, daughters. They've got to do that. So I don't know at the end of the day how they're going to even get time to build the log cabin by the lake and to stroke badgers. They would be knackered. Now, interestingly, their precious time that they've got... in the paradise, you know, the time to stroke badgers, as you know, that time is getting more squeezed and squeezed out when it comes to what Jeffrey Jackson alludes to, and he actually said that during the resurrection work, to quote him, he actually said that God's kingdom will sponsor the greatest education in all humankind, in all human history, the greatest education. So what he's referring to is that we will have, coming back to this earth, it's been estimated that there's been about 107 billion people that's ever lived, or maybe living now, I don't know. But let's just take off the 7, coincidentally, let's remove the 7 billion who are living now, who will die at Armageddon. So we're left with 100 million. Now, the majority of people who have ever lived since Adam are coming back. They are coming back. The only people who aren't coming back are the people that God personally destroyed. So that would be everybody who died in the flood. everybody that God killed for being scared in the wilderness, all the Israelites who he put to death personally, or used snakes or plagues or whatever, they ain't coming back either for being the crime of being scared. All the people who lived in cities in the area that the Israelites were told to go and cleanse, Jehovah said, go in there, spare nobody, put them to the sword. None of those are coming back. Jehovah may not personally of kill them, but it was by his word and by the human sword that these people put to death. They ain't coming back. Other people he personally killed and come back, like obviously the guy who ejaculated on his dead brother's wife's leg or ground because of whatever reason. He's not coming back either, and probably Judas isn't coming back either. And I think that may be it. I think everybody else is coming back. So that's probably 100 billion people are coming back. So 100 billion people are coming back on either righteous or unrighteous. You've got 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses, and all of these people are going to be coming back who have probably never seen the Bible, don't know who Jehovah God is, wondering what is going on, why aren't I in heaven or with my dead ancestors or what have you. They will all need educated. That is 100 billion people. So every single witness, how are they going to have time to stroke badgers and eat fruit and veg and build a log cabin? Because each of them has got to conduct 12,500 Bible studies. Oh my God, just think about it today. The Jehovah's Witnesses, all 8 million, for the 7 billion people that are living now, and you've got the 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses, they haven't been able in the past 100 years to be able to contact everybody in this earth, to hold a Bible study. You know, hardly any of them are holding a Bible study, yet somehow these have got to do 12,500 12,500 Bible courses with these people. Over the next 1,000 years. They won't have there's no time to stroke badgers. You're burying their dead, and then when these guys come back and you say, can you help us just bury my wife here? You know, what's going on? I'll tell you afterwards. We'll have a Bible study afterwards. I just put, you could be my number one. I've only got another, 12,499 to do after I start doing your Bible study. But help us bury my wife. Or my sons and my daughters there. That's that pile of ice. I'll explain what's happened afterwards. I know it's a bit confused. And I love the uniform, by the way. So anyway, so what sort of people would be coming back then? What sort of people might be coming back in the resurrection under the banner of the category of the unrighteous? Well, let's just think about it. Let's just think about, firstly, the people who won't be coming back. So the people who won't be coming back is this aid worker. This aid worker has gone over to probably... I don't know, maybe Afghanistan or somewhere like that, and he's giving out toys or food or whatever, or providing medical assistance. He's doing charitable works. He clearly comes under the banner of righteous, but because he is probably a Catholic, he dies at Armageddon. This woman here, and all these children as well, she dies. She potentially could have been somebody, this woman here, potentially could have been a woman who got so fed up seeing children dying needlessly in Africa that she eventually started to hate God, and maybe sold all her belongings and went over to Africa and said, I want to genuinely help children live and not die tonight. And she went over there and spent the rest of her life maybe contracting illnesses herself, and maybe getting seriously ill, and trying to provide some sort of humanitarian aid and medical assistance, to help these children survive the night. And she, and probably all the other children as well, these are probably, maybe ancestor worship or Catholics or what have you, these will all die at Armageddon as well. She will die at Armageddon. The fact that she's in modern day terms is a righteous person, but she will die for the crime of not being a baptized Jehovah's Witness and actually being in opposition of God, actually hating God for allowing this to happen in the first place. Who else is going to die? Well, the lovely Chinese family next door, they're all gone as well. Yes, the lovely family there, they're all gone as well, because none of those are baptized Jehovah's Witnesses. And obviously the lovely Muslim family, the other side of me, they are dead as well. They're all gone because obviously they don't worship God either, and they belong to the wrong religion. So Armageddon, they're dead. Who else is going to die at Armageddon? That's me, my son and my wife. We're all going to go, sadly, because none of us, well, me and my wife are baptized Jehovah's Witnesses, but we no longer attend. My son, I don't even know if he believes in God, actually, and although we've had many discussions, but he's going to die as well. Other people that are going to die, all my friends who go to all go to there, that is Old Trafford. Basically, probably everybody in that stadium is going to die. In fact, seeing some of the performances I've seen recently at Old Trafford, it looks like some of them are already halfway there. So that's 74,000 people in that stadium are probably going to die at Armageddon. All decent people like these people here. These are some of the people who go to Old Trafford. They're my drinking buddies there. They are, there they are. They're going to die as well, because I know that none of these are baptized Jehovah's Witnesses. The only person there is me, and I don't even believe it anymore. So they're all going to die at Armageddon, which is, of course, we're told is imminent. So let's go back to who's coming back at Armageddon. Sadly, if Armageddon comes tomorrow, near enough everybody that I've just demonstrated to you is going to sadly die. They're all going to sadly die. So let's look at potentially who is going to be coming back at Armageddon. Let's see who's going to come back at Armageddon, who will be welcomed back. And of course, if you think about it, you know, I said earlier, according to the illustrations here, these people are coming back wearing clothes that they were comfortable in. So we should be welcoming back Adolf Hitler, looking probably something like that. He'll be coming back, despite being a man who did vile and wicked things. He comes back under the banner of the Unrighteous resurrection. Heinrich Himmler, nice. That would be nice to welcome that uniform back. Heinrich Himmler, he's coming back as well. Unrighteous resurrection. Hermann Göring, the leader of the Luftwaffe, again he will come back wearing that lovely outfit as well. Maybe not the hat or the satchel with his gun in it. And also, rather fetching leather coat here, Joseph Goebbels. He will be coming back as well in the Righteous Resurrection, so we can welcome back Joseph Goebbels as well. Who else can we welcome back? Well, that's obviously, you know, they'll come back smartly dressed. Another nice uniform is Colonel Gaddafi. Who else? Saddam Hussein. They'll all be coming back wearing these uniforms, remember, because they were the clothes that they were used to wearing. Another one, Idi Amin. You know, all these guys have really smart clothes, so I think they should come back wearing those clothes. The Moors murderers, Hindley and Brady, they are coming back as well. They did vile and wicked things, killed children, but they're coming back. Charlie Manson, he's coming back as well. He looks a little bit like Jesus, so I reckon he gets to keep his beard. Fred West, vile and wicked things, he's coming back too. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, he's coming back too. The Night Stalker, Ramirez, he's coming back too. Who else? Oh yes, because he actually looks like a Jehovah's Witness. Ted Bundy is coming back too. And finally, all the people who flew the aircrafts during 9/11. You know, it was a vile and wicked thing that they did, but guess what? These boys are coming back. These boys are coming back in the resurrection. But I'm not. I'm getting put to death at Armageddon. Unless I died before Armageddon, I'm coming back. Potentially. Or maybe because I've sinned against the Spirit, I won't come back. I don't know. But basically, this is the nonsense of this. You're a case of the sister I spoke about earlier, who lost her husband and her children, may be asked to do a Bible study with Myra Hindley. Now think about this. Myra Hindley was a child killer, and the killer of her children, Jehovah God, is going to ask her to have a Bible study with a child killer. So, you know, the paradox there, it just blows your mind. She's maybe been asked to have a Bible study with Myra Hindley, a child killer, by the person who killed her children. This is, it's, you know, it is staggering. And when we think about going back to the conquistador, going back to the Iberian soldier for Christ, let's think about him. He did that and he's walking away. How could he reject the message? Now, this is why he can reject the message. And this is something else that Jackson alludes to. I thought in the resurrection that when you came back obviously with a perfect body and the smart casual clothes that you're used to wearing, i.e. all those lovely uniforms. Oh my God. And I actually thought that somehow their minds had been transformed. But if their minds had transformed, they wouldn't come back as the people they were. So this explains why the Iberian soldier of Christ rejects it. Because he doesn't come back as somebody whose mind has been transformed. He's come back as the same monster he was when he died. Who, what sort of monster brings back monsters? You know, what is going on? What sort of monster brings back monsters? So all of these guys here, all of these guys like Hitler, Himmler, Göring and Goebbels, they will come back resurrected under the banner of the unrighteous ones, of doing vile and wicked things, dressed in their Nazi uniforms, and they will still come back hating Jews and wanting to conquer. Maybe you think, how long is this going on for? 1,000 years? Great, this is the Third Reich, let's crack on with this and finish the job. These guys will come back exactly the same as they were before, wanting to carry on the extermination of Jews. It's the same guys. You'll get the likes of Ted Bundy. When he gets resurrected back wearing everybody sort of dressed like him, he'll look quite smart in court. He'll come back thinking, where's my Volkswagen? You know, and kind of go and pick up some chicks. These guys are going to come back as the same people as they were. Because they never got the chance of a Bible study and to sort of stand or make a stand on the question of are you going to be in God's side or not, these guys will get a chance to come back, even though they will come back exactly the same as they were, being, you know, monsters, you know, just, I can't go into any more terms than what these people really were. These people were monsters, but they are coming back having exactly the same prejudices that they had beforehand. They're the same people, now full of youthful energy, wearing the same uniforms, wanting to carry on what they started with, you know, a few hundred years ago. The thing about it, this is, right, I kid you not, I would have loved the illustration of when you saw them all coming back in their clothes that they were familiar with. Why didn't they show a picture of Himmler, Göring or Goebbels or Hitler on the other side wearing their uniform, to then demonstrate that even that in the resurrection of the righteous and unrighteous, even Nazis are going to come back? And then seeing this Nazi eventually rejecting the message, and maybe one Nazi accepting the message and turning around and getting baptized. Because the reason why they don't is because that would have been too much for people to swallow. They're all right thinking a killer of Christ from the 16th century, you know, putting a sword through a woman and baby, that is more acceptable, thinking, well, he can come back and have the chance of everlasting life, getting educated. But the very thought of members of the Nazi Party who actually took part in the genocide of 6 million people, that they can come back and have a chance of eternal life when I have lost my husband and my children at Armageddon, would be too much for them to swallow. So basically, they've done this because it goes right down the line of confirmation bias. Oh yes, it's all right to think about people in the dim and distant past who'll get the chance again. But then if you shove a Nazi in there, wearing a uniform, coming back under the banner of an unrighteous person, a wicked and vile person, then the cognitive dissonance would actually have to kick in. And I don't think it would kick in. I think people would then struggle to try and justify how a member of the Nazi party can come back, but they know in their heart of hearts that if Armageddon comes tomorrow, that their husband and their children are going to die. And I think they wouldn't be able to accept that. And I think that's very telling. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And this teaching from the Jehovah's Witnesses, I find it, I hated it then when it came back a year ago. And now, probably for seeing other Jehovah's Witness, whenever they come out of their little cave where they've been hiding and they start carting again, I think I'm going to just wade straight in with this resurrection of the righteous and unrighteous and see, because most Jehovah's Witnesses have close relatives or friends of theirs who've left the organisation, who they know as it presently stands will die at Armageddon. And I'm just going to run down the road that potentially they could be having a Bible study with Colonel Gaddafi or Ted Bundy, and they've lost the loved one. And this is them believing a God of love and a God of justice. There's nothing loving about this. There's no justice at all in you having to lose your husband and your children at Armageddon just because they're not baptized Jehovah's Witnesses or because they fell in love with the wrong person, yet you're going to give somebody else the chance of eternal life who's been part of the genocide of millions of people. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses who believe in the resurrection of the righteous and unrighteous. As I've shown, it's from the Bible, and Paul at the time was speaking to the Jewish community at the time, must have believed it as well. And it is not just Jehovah's Witnesses who believe in a judgment day and the resurrection, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's across the board here. It doesn't make any sense. It really, really doesn't. So I don't really know what to say. That's my thought on that. I'll come back with something else triggers me into action, into doing a video. But if you know any Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this, just think about the justice in that. And if you've got any Jehovah's Witness relatives or friends, just crack in with this recent Jeffrey Jackson talk and those illustrations, and just say, and then just change the soldier of Christ from the 16th century and just say, are we welcoming back Nazis? Are we welcoming back Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, the Night Stalker, Hindley and Brady? Are we welcoming these back? And they'd have to admit, yeah, because they'd come under the banner of the righteous, on the banner of the unrighteous, not the righteous. And then hit them with the fact that, well, hold on a second, you're going to lose your husband, he's not a witness, you're going to lose your sons and your daughter, or your sister, or your mother or your father. And then maybe, the cognitive dissonance will not kick in, and maybe that will totally blow their confirmation bias that it cannot even be justified, and maybe that will be the thing which gets them out of the organisation. I don't know. Probably not, to be honest with you, because you know what they're like. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. If you like what you saw today, you can subscribe. If you want to leave any comments, that'll be very, very nice, because I try to personally reply to enough everyone that gets put on. But not always, but most of the time I do. Anyway, see you later. Bye-bye.